The ship is tilting. 45 degrees. Men are sliding across the deck, screaming, grabbing anything bolted down. Lieutenant Commander Whitmore stands at the rail. Come. His chaplain's cross glinting in the moonlight. Chaplain. A young sailor, maybe 19, wild-eyed with terror. Are we going to die? Whitmore looks at him. The kid is shaking. Behind him, 799 other men are asking the same question. They're looking at him. Waiting. Because he's the chaplain. The man of God. The one who's supposed to have answers. Whitmore hasn't believed in God for 3 years. But tonight he's going to pray like he does. Because that's the job. Not to have faith, but to give it. July 30th, 1945. The USS Indianapolis. Heavy cruiser. Just completed the most secret mission of World War II. Delivering components for the atomic bomb to Tinian Island. Mission accomplished. Heading home. 880 sailors on board. Young men. Most of them teenagers. The war was almost over. They were thinking about going home. About seeing their families. About getting on with their lives. Then, at 12 minutes past midnight, 2 torpedoes from a Japanese submarine hit the starboard side. The first explosion killed dozens instantly. Ripped through the ship's hull. Flooded the forward compartments. The second hit the fuel tanks. Fire everywhere. The USS Indianapolis, one of the most decorated ships in the Pacific, had 12 minutes before it went under. 12 minutes for 880 men to get off a sinking ship in the middle of the night in the middle of the ocean. Lieutenant Commander Thomas Whitmore was in his quarters when the first torpedo hit. He was 52 years old. Navy chaplain for 23 years. He'd served on 4 ships, been through 3 combat deployments, earned 2 Bronze Stars for valor. He'd counseled dying men. Blessed the dead. Led Sunday services in every ocean. He was good at his job. Everyone said so. The crew loved him. Trusted him. Came to him with their fears, their doubts, their sins. And Chaplain Whitmore listened. Prayed with them. Gave them comfort. Gave them hope. Gave them God. But Whitmore didn't believe in God anymore. Hadn't for 3 years. Not since December 7th, 1941. Pearl Harbor. His son, Lieutenant Junior Grade Michael Whitmore, was stationed on the USS Arizona. 22 years old. Whitmore's only child. Smart kid. Good kid. Wanted to follow his father into the Navy. Made him proud every day. That Sunday morning, Whitmore was at the chapel in San Diego, leading services. When the news came through about the attack, he fell to his knees right there at the altar. Prayed. Begged. Please God. Save my son. Please. I've served you my whole life. Please. The telegram came 6 hours later. Lieutenant Junior Grade Michael Whitmore. Killed in action. USS Arizona. Body not recovered. Lost with the ship. Whitmore read it 3 times. Then he went to his quarters. Locked the door. And screamed at God. Cursed him. Demanded answers. Got silence. That night, something broke inside Thomas Whitmore. His faith. His belief. Everything he'd built his life on. Gone. Just like his son. But he kept his uniform. Kept his chaplain's cross. Kept doing his job. Because he realized something in that grief. It didn't matter what he believed. It mattered what they believed. The sailors. The young men going into combat. The boys far from home facing death. They needed a chaplain. They needed someone who believed when they couldn't. Who prayed when they were too scared to form words. Who stood between them and the darkness and told them God was there. Even if he wasn't. Even if it was all a lie. Because sometimes the lie is kinder than the truth. For 3 years, Whitmore played the part. Sunday services. Prayer before battle. Last rites for the dying. He said the words. Made the gestures. Wore the collar. And nobody knew. Nobody suspected. He was the perfect chaplain. Because he knew exactly what they needed to hear. Not truth. Hope. Not answers. Comfort. Not God. The idea of God. The promise that their deaths would mean something. That someone was watching. That they weren't alone. Now, standing on the tilting deck of the USS Indianapolis, watching 800 men scramble for their lives, Whitmore felt nothing. No fear. No faith. Just cold calculation. The ship was going down. Most of these men wouldn't make it. The ones who did would be in the water. Middle of the Pacific. No distress signal sent. The radios were destroyed in the blast. No one knew they were hit. No one would come looking. Not for days. Maybe weeks. Sharks. Exhaustion. Dehydration. Hypothermia. Most of them would die. But some would survive. If they kept their heads. If they didn't panic. If someone kept them calm. Whitmore grabbed the rail. pulled himself up the tilting deck toward the highest point. Men were jumping overboard. Some had life vests. Most didn't. There weren't enough. Never enough. He saw Captain McVeigh near the bridge, shouting orders, trying to organize the evacuation. Good man. Doing his best. But chaos doesn't listen to orders. Fear doesn't follow protocol. These men needed more than commands. They needed faith. Whitmore reached the highest point on the sinking ship. Grabbed a rope. Wrapped it around his waist so he wouldn't slide. Then he raised his voice. Men. Listen to me. 40 men nearby stopped. Looked up. Saw the chaplain's cross catching moonlight. We're abandoning ship. Stay calm. Help each other. God is with us. The words came automatically. Smooth. Practiced. Empty. But they worked. The men near him stopped panicking. Started moving with purpose. Helping each other into the water. Sharing life vests. Whitmore kept talking. Kept them calm. Kept lying. Then he saw the kid. Seaman First Class Danny Sullivan. 19 years old. From Iowa. Farm kid. Joined the Navy because his daddy made him. Scared of the ocean. Scared of everything. Whitmore had counseled him twice for panic attacks. Sweet kid. Homesick. Now Sullivan was clinging to a piece of railing, frozen, life vest hanging loose on his shoulders, terror in his eyes. The ship lurched. Sullivan lost his grip. Started sliding toward the edge. Whitmore lunged. Grabbed him. Pulled him back. I can't swim, Chaplain. Sullivan's voice was shaking. I never learned. I'm from Iowa. We don't. I can't. Whitmore looked at him. Looked at the life vest barely staying on the kid's thin shoulders. Looked at the ocean below. The ship had maybe 3 minutes left. He made a decision. The same decision he'd been making for 3 years. The lie that saves is better than the truth that kills. You're going to be fine, son. Whitmore pulled off his own life vest. Put it on Sullivan. Tighten the straps. This vest will keep you afloat. You don't need to swim. Just stay calm. Breathe. God's going to take care of you. Sullivan's eyes went wide. Sir, what about you? Whitmore smiled. The same smile he'd given to hundreds of dying men. The chaplain's smile. The one that said everything would be okay even when it wouldn't. I'm a chaplain. God takes care of his own. He pushed Sullivan toward the rail. Now jump. And start praying. I'll be right behind you. Sullivan jumped. Whitmore watched him hit the water. Watched the life vest pull him to the surface. Watched him start swimming, badly, panicked but moving. Alive. For now. Whitmore had no life vest now. At 52, with bad knees and a weak heart, he had maybe 30 minutes in the water before exhaustion took him. Maybe less. He just traded his life for a 19-year-old kid from Iowa. And he felt nothing. No regret. No fear. No faith that it mattered. Just cold acceptance. The ship lurched again. Steeper. 70 degrees now. Men were screaming. The bow was underwater. The stern rising. In 2 minutes, the USS Indianapolis would be gone. Whitmore looked around. Saw Captain McVeigh still on the bridge. Still at his post. Good captain. Going down with his ship. As he should. Whitmore thought about joining him. Staying on board. Going down quiet. But then he heard it. From the water below. Voices. Hundreds of voices. Screaming. Crying. Calling for help. Calling for God. Calling for him. Chaplain. Chaplain, help us. Pray for us. Is God there? Can you hear me, Chaplain? They needed him. Even in the water. Even dying. They needed the lie. Whitmore took a breath. Then he jumped. The water was warm. Pacific Ocean. July. But it felt cold. Everything felt cold. Whitmore surfaced. Looked around. Hundreds of men. Floating. Clinging to debris. Life vests. Pieces of wood. Each other. The ship was still sinking behind them. The stern almost vertical now. The massive propellers exposed, dripping. Men still jumping. Still screaming. Chaos. Panic. Death. Whitmore started swimming. Toward the loudest group. 50 men clustered together. Some with vests. Some without. Some injured. All terrified. He reached them. Grabbed a piece of floating debris. Pulled himself up. Men. Gather around. Form a circle. Hold on to each other. We survive together. They obeyed. Started forming a circle. Linking arms. Whitmore in the center. The chaplain. The leader. The man of God who didn't believe in God. Behind them, the USS Indianapolis made a sound like the earth breaking. The stern lifted higher. Higher. Then, with a roar that shook the ocean, she slipped under. Gone. 12 minutes from torpedo to total loss. The fastest sinking of a major warship in U.S. naval history. 880 men had been on that ship. Now they were in the water. In the dark. In the middle of nowhere. And nobody knew they were there. The first hour was the worst. The panic. The screaming. Men swimming in random directions. Wasting energy. Drowning. Whitmore kept his group together. Kept them calm. Kept them focused. Conserve your energy. Stay in the circle. Help each other. Pray with me. And he prayed. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Empty words. But they weren't listening to the words. They were listening to his voice. Calm. Steady. Faithful. It was a performance. The greatest performance of his life. And it was saving them. By dawn, the panic had subsided. But the reality set in. They were alone. Miles from any shipping lane. No distress signal sent. No rescue coming. The sun rose. Hot. Brutal. Men started to realize they might die out here. Whitmore kept praying. Kept them hopeful. Kept lying. The second day was worse. The sun. The thirst. Men started drinking seawater. Whitmore tried to stop them. Don't drink it. It'll kill you faster. But desperation doesn't listen to reason. Some drank anyway. Started hallucinating. Seeing things. Islands. Ships. Rescue. They swam toward nothing. Disappeared. Whitmore counted. They'd started with 50 men in their circle. Now they were 37. He kept praying. The third day the sharks came. Oceanic whitetips. Drawn by blood. By splashing. By dying men. They circled the groups. Picking off the weak. The injured. The ones who drifted away. Whitmore saw a man taken. Just pulled under. Gone. Screaming cut off. The other men panicked. Started thrashing. Making it worse. Stop. Whitmore's voice cut through. Don't splash. Don't move. Stay still. Stay together. God is protecting us. It was a lie. God wasn't protecting them. God wasn't there. But they stopped thrashing. Stayed calm. And fewer died. By the fourth day Whitmore could barely move. No life vest. No food. No water. 52 years old. His body was shutting down. He was hypothermic despite the heat. Exhausted. Dying. But he kept talking. Kept praying. Because 30 men were still listening. 30 men were still alive because he kept them calm. Kept them faithful. Kept them believing the lie. On the fifth day a plane spotted them. A patrol bomber on routine reconnaissance. Saw the oil slick. The debris. The men. Radioed for rescue. Ships came. Started pulling men from the water. Of the 880 men on the USS Indianapolis, 316 survived. The worst naval disaster in U.S. history. But it could have been worse. Much worse. The groups that stayed calm, that stayed together, had higher survival rates. And the group with the highest survival? Whitmore's. 32 men pulled from the water alive. Out of 50. But Lieutenant Commander Thomas Whitmore wasn't one of them. By the time rescue arrived, he was unconscious. Floating. Kept afloat only by his shipmates holding him up. They pulled him onto the rescue ship. Tried to revive him. Too late. Hypothermia. Exhaustion. Heart failure. He died on the deck of the USS Doyle. Never regained consciousness. His last words, spoken in delirium, "Tell them God was with them. Tell them I believed." They buried him at sea. Full honors. Captain McVeigh, who survived, spoke at the service. Chaplain Whitmore was the bravest man I ever knew. In the darkest moment, when death was certain, he gave us faith. He gave us hope. He gave us God. 32 men are alive today because of him. Because he never stopped believing. The men bowed their heads. Prayed. Thanked God for their chaplain. For the man who saved them. But they didn't know. Nobody knew. That Thomas Whitmore died the same way he lived the last 3 years of his life. Pretending. Performing. Giving others a faith he didn't have. He led prayers he didn't believe. Gave hope he didn't feel. Sacrificed for a God he'd stopped trusting. But in the end, maybe that was faith. Real faith. Not believing in God. But believing in people enough to lie to them. To die for them. To give them what they needed even when you had nothing left. Seaman Danny Sullivan survived. Made it home to Iowa. Lived to be 87. He named his first son Thomas. And every year on July 30th he went to church. Sat in the back. And prayed for the chaplain who gave him a life vest. Who pushed him into the water. Who told him God would take care of him. Sullivan never knew the truth. Never knew Whitmore didn't believe. Maybe it didn't matter. Because in that moment, in that ocean, in that terror, Whitmore's lie became truth. His performance became real. His faith, fake as it was, saved lives. And maybe that's what faith is. Not what you believe in the quiet moments, but what you give to others in the worst ones. Not the prayer you feel, but the prayer you speak when someone needs to hear it. Not your truth, but their hope. Lieutenant Commander Thomas Whitmore spent 3 years as an atheist in a chaplain's uniform. But in 5 days in the Pacific Ocean he became exactly what his uniform said he was. A man of God. Even if God was never there. The faith that saved 32 lives wasn't Whitmore's. It was the faith he gave them. The lie that became their truth. The prayer he didn't believe that they did. And in the end, isn't that enough?